Welcome to our community. Susie Thomas with you this morning. We're visiting with Christy Peters from the American Red Cross. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Christy, we're delighted to have you, and knowing what a busy time this always is, what a horrific fall the Red Cross has been through just with extra things going on. And then I think maybe our attention got diverted to everything international happening or nationally on a big scope, and we forget even what you do just day by day in our neighborhoods. So let's just start with the Red Cross in general, the kinds of services that you regularly provide every day when there's not a horrific flood or torrential hurricanes or, all the things that we were seeing in the fall. What's a normal day like at the Red Cross?
Well, I'm not sure there's ever really a normal day, but there's definitely exciting things happening all the time. As you mentioned, it has been a couple of pretty busy months for us. Every single day we are in the community serving the residents who live there by teaching health and safety courses, responding to home fires that can happen on a regular basis.
Mm-hmm.
We see these large disasters and we forget that here in our Cleveland area, we respond to a home fire on average every night. So that's a constant need of people going out, oftentimes in the middle of the night, to respond to families who've been displaced, which is a huge thing to happen to someone, especially during this time of year. And of course, we are one of the nation's largest blood collectors. And so this time of year is also a really important time when it comes to donating blood. As you mentioned, we're all busy and we tend to get very hectic and out of our schedules. And of course, that often means that people forget to give blood. And however, there are patients right now who are going to spend the holidays, unfortunately, in a hospital, and they are depending on the community to step up and give blood and help them.
And that's primarily why we wanted to talk with you today, just to remind everybody that while you're out and about, do stop and give blood. Now, a lot of people can do this at their workplace. Will you be out and around? Do you know where in Northeast Ohio where we can do this?
So the Northern Ohio Blood Services region is headquartered in Cleveland, but we cover 19 counties across Northern Ohio, including Stark County, Summit County, and we run about 20 to 25 blood drives every single day. So there's a very good chance, as you mentioned, if it's not through your local business or where you work, local churches, community centers, a lot of those people are opening up their doors for us, especially during the holiday season, in order for people to come and give.
Do you have a schedule listed on your website?
We do. People can always visit redcrossblood.org, and you can search by your zip code. That will bring up a list of the blood drives happening in your area. And you can actually change that search to zero in closer if you want, or to go a little bit further out in terms of how far you're willing to travel to find blood drives near you. And that's updated all the time, so it's live and it can go whenever you need it. You can also schedule an appointment through the website. So it's really great if you're able to go on and find something near you right then and there. You can click it, schedule your appointment, and get all set up. So everything can be done in one place, which makes it convenient for everyone.
Mm-hmm. I know there are people who just make it a point to donate blood every year. There are always newbies coming along who haven't qualified before, who might now. What does it take to be able to be a blood donor?
To donate blood, you must be at least 17 years old. Now, here in Ohio, you can be 16 years old with parental consent. So all you have to do is have a parent or guardian sign a form, and we can get that to you when you're at the blood drive. But again, just be 17 years old, be in good health. So unfortunately, a lot of people are struggling with illnesses this time of year. It seems that there's some type of virus going around everywhere. So healthy donors are really important. And then, of course, you just have to meet some certain height and weight requirements. Normally, that's not a problem for anyone. That usually applies to younger donors. But really, there's not a lot of restrictions, and there's no upper age limit. So for the most part, there's a pretty decent amount of people who are able to give blood.
Is there a type of blood that's more necessary or more needed than other types?
I always tell people that no matter what blood type you are, you're important because
Right.
there is a patient out there that needs you. However, we do see demand from hospitals for certain types because of what they're used for. For example, type O negative blood is the universal donor, and that means that it can be given to any patient at any time, and oftentimes in an emergency situation. For example, a car accident. If you're involved in a car accident and you come into the emergency room and there isn't time to figure out what blood type you are, those doctors are going to transfuse O-negative blood because they know that it will work.
Mm-hmm.
But unfortunately, because of that, there's a higher demand because emergencies are happening all the time and there's a need for that blood. So O-negative is very important. Also, A-negative and B-negative blood are important. Those negative types are really important to us. But again, there's a variety of ways that blood is used. And so no matter what type you are, we definitely need your type.
Right. It's all necessary because someone else has it and who may need it.
Exactly. And when you donate blood, you have the potential to help different patients because there's components in your blood like platelets and plasma.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, your platelets could actually be given to someone fighting cancer. And so you have the opportunity to help not just one person, but more than one.
Wow, that's really important to consider. Do we know why the negatives seem to be so important?
To be honest, it has something to do with how the body uses them. And honestly, it's not my area of expertise, so I'm not perfect. I'm not great at explaining it all, but I do know that those types are important. And we often those donors, if able, to make a Power Red donation.
Okay, what's that?
This is a different kind of donation. You can do it at most of our mobile sites. And basically, those donors give a concentrated dose of red blood cells during one donation. So basically, they give their red blood cells, and they're separated out, and they receive back their plasma and their platelets. Now, the requirements are a little bit different for a Power Red, and you have to wait a little bit longer to give. But if you're someone with one of those O-neg, A-neg, or B-neg types, that might be something you want to consider because you can even have more of an impact by giving those concentrated dose in one donation.
Mm-hmm. A lot of people wouldn't have the slightest idea what they are. You don't know if you're B positive, O negative. You kind of find that out when you donate, right?
Absolutely. So when you come to give, if you haven't given in a very long time, that's not a problem. We can take your driver's license or your state ID to go ahead and start the process for you.
Mm-hmm.
And if you haven't given in a while or it's your first time, the American Red Cross will send you a packet of information about 8 weeks after your donation. And in that packet will be all the information about your blood type. So you'll know what type you are, and it'll have your donor card, all kinds of information. So, yes, you can find out once you donate blood what type you are.
What you are, and then you'll know. And when they say, we really need this, then you can be first in line. What is involved? Some people have never done this before, and the thought might be a little scary before that first time. What's involved when you go donate blood?
So the entire process of donating blood takes about an hour from start to finish. When you come in, you're going to present your donor card or your photo ID, and we're going to ask you to read through some general information just to make sure that you qualify to give. And then you're going to move on to your health history portion. So this is where you're going to sit down with a Red Cross health historian, and you're going to answer different questions about places that you've traveled, medications that you might be taking. And it's also where we're going to check your iron level, your temperature, and your blood pressure. And again, this is just to make sure that you're okay to donate and that the blood that you're giving is going to be safe for the patient that receives it. So once you go through that process, you're on to the actual donation. So this is the part that everybody's the most nervous about, but it actually is the shortest part of the entire process.
Right.
Your donation will only take about 10 minutes. Sometimes it's even less for some people. And then once you donate that blood, you're on to the refreshment area where you can enjoy juice and cookies. We just ask everyone to sit for a few minutes to make sure they're feeling all right. And then you're done and you're on to the.
And that's what I wanted to point out. There's juice and cookies involved. So, it just can't be bad at all, right? It's
good not,
treats.
And it's wonderful. We have so many sponsors, people who host blood drives throughout the year. And during the holiday season, a lot of them are so kind as to provide special refreshments, or if it's a church, the church will bake cookies or have extra things during the refreshment time for people. So you never know. You might walk in thinking, I'm just getting my normal cookies, and you could have cake or something even better.
Oh, very cool. Very worth the while anyway. You mentioned if you've recently had a bug. I know now there's always flu going around this time of year, just, viruses. How healthy do you need to be before you go in?
So we would recommend that if you're not feeling well on the day of your donation, you probably shouldn't donate. And that would mean basically, I've got a really stuffy nose, I'm coughing, I'm congested, I'm taking a cold medicine. I'm just not 100%. But if you're just having some allergies, things like that, that's not going to stop you from giving. But if you feel like you're getting that winter crud that just is not a good feeling, that would be the time to probably just wait a couple days till you're feeling more yourself and come and donate blood. In terms of the flu, obviously, if you have flu-like symptoms, if you have a fever, we don't want you to donate. However, if you do get the flu shot, that does not stop you from being able to donate blood. So a lot of people think, well, I just got the flu shot like a day ago, I can't give blood. And that's not a problem. You can still donate. And so a lot of the things people think might stop them or make them not able to give really aren't a problem. On our website at redcrossblood.org, you can actually look up various questions about eligibility. They are listed in alphabetical order, so pretty much any question you might think of is probably on that website, and they will answer those questions. If you're still not sure, we encourage people to come into the blood drive and sit down with the health historian, ask them your questions. We'll be happy to answer whatever we can. We'll get the answer for you. But again, normally the things we think make us not able to give really aren't a problem.
Yes. And maybe a rule of thumb, if you wouldn't want your blood that day, no one else would either, right? If
that's probably a really good rule of thumb.
Rule of thumb. What about the fear of blood-to-blood translated diseases, something that is caught by blood to blood? How do you assure that the blood supply is clean and disease-free?
So the number one priority of the American Red Cross is the safety of our donors, the safety of patients, and the safety of the blood supply. And so we take very seriously that whole process. Every time someone comes to give, it is a sterile collection set used just for that person. And the blood that's donated goes through a multitude of testing. So when you give blood, perhaps you go out, this week and you decide to give, that blood that you give is going to be collected and it's going to be brought back to Cleveland, to our downtown center here, and it's going to start the process of being tested. So we're going to begin to process it here, but we're also going to send tubes to our testing labs that are actually going to go through a variety of tests for that blood, and it takes about 3 days for that to happen. So while we're waiting, we're processing it, it's on hold, and then we get those test results back, and the blood is finished being processed and it's sent out. So again, we are committed to the safety of the blood supply and to the safety of our donors, and that is why we go through all of these different processes and have all of these things in place to ensure that that occurs.
That's so good to know, Christy, especially when you're on the receiving end, to think, my goodness, you've gone to a lot of care to make sure that everything is on the up and up.
Well, and I think a lot of people forget, too, that the need for blood is constant. So people forget that it doesn't necessarily go straight from you to a donor. It has to go through some processes in between, which is why we always ask people, if you can give now when things aren't necessarily bad, the weather's not bad, we're not dealing with a lot of emergencies. That means that when those things start to happen and we have to cancel blood drives because of a snowstorm, the blood is already on the shelves, ready to go for hospitals, and we don't have to worry about trying to up that supply in a time of crisis.
Right. And you know what? Now that you bring that up, because in a time of crisis is when it's top of the mind. That's when you think, oh, I should go give blood. But is it possible that you end up during those times with too much, or does any get wasted?
You know what? We have been just inundated with wonderful people over the course of the last few months who have been donating blood. And it's been absolutely fantastic to see the response of the American people who have just come forward and said, we want to help. And so many of those people have donated blood. And the thing to remember about the American Red Cross is that we are a national organization. So when you donate blood, of course, we want to meet the needs of our local patients first. Here in Northern Ohio, we serve 57 local hospitals, and we need about 900 pints of blood every day. Wow. So, of course, we're always, needing people to come and give, and we're using that blood as necessary. But in times of disaster or when there's a natural, disaster that occurs, we have the ability to move blood around the country. And so we have an inventory management system that we're always looking at. We're always watching where blood is coming in and where it's going, and we're moving it where it's most needed. So you have the ability to not only help people here locally, but people across the country. And, that makes me feel good. I have family that lives in a different state, so I want to know that they're going to be helped just as much as I would be helped here.
Yes. How often are we able to give blood?
You can safely donate blood every 56 days. Normally, what we tell people is, if you've given once this year, it would be great if you could give just one more time. That would make a huge impact on the local blood supply. And it's a great thing to do, maybe, to give back during this time of year. Right before the end of the year, it's a gift that really doesn't cost anything, but it's going to mean so much to a patient in need.
Yes. As we're seeing all the beautiful red decorations everywhere, let that just be a reminder that it's another time to give blood. This is a good time to give blood with all the red and white candy canes and everything that we're looking at. One more question before we take a break about donating blood. You mentioned something else, plasma. And I've seen plasma centers out and about. What is the difference between donating your plasma and donating blood? Or is there?
To be honest, I can't really speak to those plasma centers because I don't really have knowledge of them. But what I can say is that, the blood that's donated through the American Red Cross, a lot of times hospitals are taking that whole unit, so they're not necessarily breaking it down into its separate components because patients might need everything. So really, the most important thing to remember is that what you're giving through the American Red Cross is going to patients, and they're depending on that blood. Again, to fight different diseases, to get through treatments. And plasma, for example, is often given to burn patients. So that's oftentimes where we see it used in hospitals.
Okay, and that actually is part of the pint of blood that we donate, that it's all there together, mixed together, not sifted out.
Right. So when you donate your 1 pint, it has its 3 components in it, which are your red blood cells, your platelets, and your plasma. So here at the American Red Cross, as I mentioned, when it comes back, we have the ability to separate it out, or we can, keep it together. It really just depends on what a hospital is requesting.
Great. Good to know. This is all such good information. We do need to take a short break. We'll be back with Christy Peters from the American Red Cross after these words. You're listening to Our Community.